Tyler from Aspire Sports. Today's video, I'm going to give you my best ball strategy and explain what best ball is if you're unsure what best ball is. A strategy, though, that will help you succeed in best ball drafts. So, with that being said, let's get into the video. So, what is best ball and where can you play best ball? Best ball is basically a draft. You draft people and there's no in-season management. So you don't have to worry about playing the waiver wire. You don't have to worry about setting your lineup. Like, that stuff is out. It takes your optimal lineup for that week, and just basically that's your starting lineup. So if you had 3 running backs, and you have to start 2 of them, whoever the 2 highest scoring running backs were for that week, those are the guys that would be in your lineup. And you want to have the highest scoring team at the end of the season. Now, where can you play best ball? The best site, Underdog. You go to Underdog and you can sign up there, play best ball leagues. It's very easy to sign up as well. So there's 2 kind of leagues that you can play in. Basically, tournament leagues, which are like your GPPs for DFS, and then cash games down here. Like a 12-person league, you could have a 3-person league. Now, these are for $3 entries, but you could also do like $5 entries. And $5, I believe there's 10-team leagues. And then you can get up to like $20, $25, like $50, I believe. I don't know what the max is for these kind of leagues. But so for the $3 league, 12-person league, this one does have a slow draft. So that means like there's 8, I believe you have 8 hours for each pick. If you go and do the $5 entry with 12 people, you don't have this. So that would be the one. If you want to do like more of a cash game, I would advise going and doing that one. So that's what best ball is, and you can play on Underdog. So what is my draft strategy when it comes to best ball leagues? The first piece of advice that I would give you is, just like DFS, is you want to stack. You want to have stacking options on your team. And what I mean by that is you stack a quarterback and receiving options. So say your quarterback, you want to draft like Josh Allen, right? You draft Josh Allen. A guy on your team should be like Stefon Diggs. If you can't get Stefon Diggs, say he went too early, guys like Gabe Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, Dawson Knox, possibly. Those are guys that you want to have on your team. Because why you want to stack is, if you think about just football in general, you draft players in fantasy football that are going to be a part of good teams, like your highest scoring teams. Those guys are going early in the drafts. And in fantasy football, it's very hard to predict. It's the hardest sport to project for. There's so many different variables that go into it, so much randomness that goes into it each and every single week, on top of a small sample size, right? So we want to limit all the randomness in fantasy football, and a way to do that is have players that play on one team. So you stack players, your quarterback, your wide receivers, because if, say, Josh Allen, your quarterback, has 350 passing yards and like 3 touchdowns, the chances that Stefon Diggs or Gabe Davis doesn't have a good game are low. Like, Stefon Diggs probably has, 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown, right? If Josh Allen's throwing for 350 and 3 touchdowns, it's not likely that Stefon Diggs has 1 catch for 10 yards, right? That's not likely. It's likely that he's had a pretty good game himself. So we want to stack, the top offenses in the league with good with good wide receivers, with a good tight end, whatever the case may be. So the top stacking teams that I like to do, that quarterback wide receiver combos that I like to stack, the first one is Dallas. I think that Dallas can lead the NFL in passing attempts this upcoming season. I believe that Dak could honestly lead the NFL in passing yards this upcoming season. So that's the number one stack for me, Dak. And then you can go like guys like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, where their price tag isn't that high compared to like your Stefon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, right? You can get those guys in like the 3rd, 4th round. So that's my number one stack. And then you can also go a guy like Michael Gallup. I believe he's going like the 8th round or 7th round. And you could go a guy like Jarwin. I forget what his first name is. Jarwin, right? Yeah, the tight end. Blake Jarwin. Is that his first name? I can't remember what his first name is. So you could go Jarwin at tight end position. Another stack that I would like is, honestly, LA Rams. You have Matthew Stafford. He's going later than your top 5 quarterbacks right now. And you can stack him with like a Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, right? Those are stacking options as well. So you got to decide what your favorite one is. I mean, one of my favorite ones is Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, because let's talk about my draft strategy. What my draft strategy is kind of like round by round. I'm not going to go through all the rounds, mainly focus on like rounds 1 through 6, 1 through 7. So for the first 3 rounds, what I like to do in these leagues is I want to go 2 stud running backs with a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. I don't have any interest in Travis Kelce. He goes way too early. He goes at like pick 6. I have no interest. And honestly, I have not had a top 5 draft pick for best ball on Underdog. I have not had it inside the top 5. They've all been not even honestly 7. I've had 8, 9, 10, 11. Those have been the picks that I've had for all of my leagues. So, but it's okay because I'm used to the strategy now. So what I do is I go running back in the first round. And typically a guy like Jonathan Taylor will fall, or a guy like Saquon Barkley typically falls. Or like if those guys aren't there, I'll go like Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, like one of those guys is who I go. And then the second round, I typically get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, especially with Davante Adams now back. DeAndre Hopkins, I can get him in the second round there. And if not, like if Stephon Diggs is there or Calvin Ridley's there, like I'll go one of those guys. And then third round is usually where I go my second running back. Now, rare cases, I'll go running back in the second round. But like in the third round, I like to go running back because I get a guy like DeAndre Swift. I can get a guy like David Montgomery, J.K. Dobbins, Chris Carson. Like I get one of those guys in the third round, and I'm completely fine with them being my second running back. Sometimes I'll go like Najee Harris in the second round and then go like Amari Cooper in the third round. Sometimes Terry McLaurin can fall to me in the third round, but it's not likely. So that's why I like to go my first wide receiver in the second round and just have a top 5 guy in fantasy football at the wide receiver position, along with like a top 10 running back and then a top 20 running back. So that's my draft strategy for the first 3 rounds. And then the fourth round, I'm going wide receiver. And the targets that I usually always draft in the third round or in the fourth round. I'll have a guy like Tyler Lockett will be there. Cooper Kupp's another name. Jamar Chase. Those are the 3 guys that I'm constantly looking for in the fourth round, because then it gives me stacking options as well. If I don't land that, like if I land Calvin Ridley, I don't really want Matt Ryan. I'd much rather have like a Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford rather than going like Matt Ryan later. But ideally, I get like DeAndre Hopkins, and then I can stack it with Kyler Murray is what I really want. But if I don't get that, then I'm okay with stacking the other quarterbacks there in that range as well. And also Russell Wilson is in that discussion as well. He's going like the 7th round, so I can usually land Russell Wilson as well. So first 3 rounds, 2 stud running backs, a wide receiver, 4th round wide receiver. And why wide receivers? Like wide receivers on here are more valuable because you have to start 3 wide receivers. Okay. So wide receivers are more of a premium where you could have 4 wide receivers starting that week, 3 wide receivers, on the roster, and then a flex. So wide receivers are pretty valuable in best ball leagues. So I'll go 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds, specifically running backs in the first 3 rounds, 2 running backs. And then round 5 is usually when I start to look for my quarterback. Because at that point, like a lot of the receivers are gone. I don't really like the running backs. And if Kyler Murray is there, I pull the trigger on Kyler Murray. Otherwise, I'll take the risk, wait an extra round, see if one of those top 5 quarterbacks fall to me, and then pull the trigger there. If not, then I can get like Russell Wilson or somebody that I love as well. So, but usually I'm able to get Kyler Murray in the 5th round. If not, then that's fine. And if I get Kyler Murray in the 5th round, what I usually do in the 6th round is I go TJ Hawkinson. That way I basically have my starting lineup already set, except one more wide receiver, who I'll talk about him in a minute, but I have my tight end that I believe can honestly possibly finish inside the top 3 because he should have a massive workload this upcoming season. So many targets, and if he can put together some touchdowns, he could possibly get there. So I have a tight end, TJ Hawkinson, who I love. I have my quarterback that I love at that point, and I'm good to go. If I don't get TJ Hawkinson, because sometimes he's drafted, I'll aim for guys like a Mike Gesicki later and Troutman as well. Like I'll go those 2 guys typically who I go a little bit later. So that's my draft strategy for like the first 6 rounds. And then real quickly, I'll talk about some wide receivers, some guys that I usually go later in the draft. So usually, like there's 3 guys that I have 100% exposure to. Okay, there's 3 guys, and it's just because they're going at such good value right now. And the first one is Juju. Over his ADP currently on Underdog, his ADP right now is 79. He's the 40th wide receiver taken off the board on Underdog currently. So like I'm sitting there every single time, and Juju is up for me. And like there's guys around him like Mike Williams, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel. Like every single time I'm taking Juju Smith-Schuster. And why? Because in the 3 seasons that he's played with Ben Roethlisberger healthy, he's been a top 20 wide receiver in those 3 seasons. He's never finished under 7 touchdowns with Ben Roethlisberger. It's always been 7 or more. So Juju Smith-Schuster, the 3rd wide receiver, I believe he should be the 2nd wide receiver taken from Pitt. You can get him at wide receiver 40. Like that's a no-brainer. He's going to definitely outperform his ADP. So one player that I have 100% exposure to. Another one that I have 100% exposure to is Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, you're getting him. He's a wide receiver number 1 for his team, okay? Maybe Deshaun Watson doesn't play this season. Maybe he does. And if he does, absolutely crushes this. He's easily a top 15 guy if Deshaun Watson plays this season. Honestly, could be a top 10 guy. So you're getting him right now. I believe it's like wide receiver 45 is where you're getting him. It's a no-brainer. And if he doesn't play this upcoming season, yes, he can easily outperform this ADP because he's the number 1 wide receiver on his team. So that's another guy. And then the last guy that I have, I won't go and try to search for him, is James White, because James White is currently being drafted as RB number 49. He's going right there with guys that are in his range. Tevin Coleman, Darrington Evans, Philip Lindsay. Like, I'd much rather have James White over all of those guys. I believe James White can easily see 75 targets plus this upcoming season. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Those 3 guys I have 100% exposure to. And then, like, so running backs aren't as big as the premium as wide receivers. So what I like to do is James Conner is typically like in round like 9, 10 is where I target James Conner, and I can get James Conner there, and I feel good about him as my RB3. And then usually I like to walk away with 5 running backs. So I'll go James White later in the draft, and then like guys like maybe a Nyheim Hines, J.D. McKissick, Jamal Williams, like in that range is kind of who I would like my 4th running back to be. Guys that have, I feel like, a safe floor because they're going to see receiving work. Or I might go a guy like Darrell Williams, who's going super late, where if anything happens to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's the next man up. Or a Alexander Madison. Anything happens to Dalvin Cook, he's the next man up. But usually I like to go with the safer floors there just because they give me a nice option week to week, where if my running backs have a dud week, I can rely on them to give me some points for that upcoming week. Or Darrell Williams, usually a guy that I have on my rosters as well because he's going super late. And then the last person I want to talk about, the last player that I think that you should absolutely draft, not only in Underdog Best Ball, but your season-long leagues right now as well, is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is going like nearly undrafted. Like on Underdog, I can get him in like round 16, 17 as like quarterback number 30 currently. And think about this for a minute. If Deshaun Watson doesn't play this upcoming season, then whatever. He sits on my bench. Guys that you're getting at that range, it's very, very unlikely that they do anything this upcoming season. So I'd rather take a guy with Deshaun Watson where if he does play this season, he's a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football, rather than a guy like, I don't even know who goes in that range, like Mark Ingram or somebody. I don't know. It's so bad down there where there's no real upside. Like there are a couple guys where if the person in front of them gets hurt, then sure, he could be a fantasy stud, but there's really no value to be had there. Where Deshaun Watson plays, he's a top 5 quarterback. And if he doesn't, it's like drafting one of those other guys. Chances are you're not going to hit on them anyways. So Deshaun Watson is absolutely somebody that I have almost 100% exposure to, because at that point I'll have my second quarterback and then I'll just take a flyer on Deshaun Watson and have 3 quarterbacks, right? So that's my draft strategy. Let me know if you have a different one down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of it, what you think of my draft strategy. Is it something that you're going to try? So let me know how your best ball drafts are going. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.